Acha mkunu solum we geye this lawyer Basalu, the case of Nnamdi Kanu and the federal government of Nigeria.
The entire trial of Nnamdi Kanu, to me, this is me speaking, I think it's a needless exercise. It's an exercise in futility. The government is busy making monsters out of Nigerians, pushing Nigerians to the wall and pushing a lot of persons to the wall. I do not think that it was proper in the first place, given the fact that the government has a lot of issues on its table to deal with. The issue of poverty, the issue of hunger, and so on and so forth. For the first time, if my memory serves me right, this will be the first time in the history of this country where Nigerians, one of the most populous countries in Africa, and one of the richest countries, if I'm not mistaken, in the whole world, will be protesting and asking the government, protesting and saying that they are hungry. Protesting. It happened in Kanu, in Mina. I think somewhere in Kanu it happened. And even in Abuja, there's a lot of protests against hunger and mismanagement of government. So I think the trial was needless in the first place, and the government should focus on a lot of issues. The government has a lot to do. For instance, even the military, they are overwhelmed. The entire security apparatus in Nigeria, the police, the military, the armed forces. When I say the armed forces, I mean both the Navy, Air Force, and so on, and the civil defense, and all of them, they are not up to 2 million. And now you expect these people to police over 200 million or more Nigerians. So I feel that the government is misplaced. Now, do not forget that the government spends resources and everything to be trying Omoyele Owerri. Members of the media, you are aware that charge has been dropped. With all the monies, with all the media hype, it has been dropped. The government shamelessly, entered a nolle prosecute, and the matter is dropped. So what is the essence of all this kind of trial? Now they should focus on issues: hunger, the weakening of the skyrocketing weakness of the naira, and so on and so forth. They should focus on all this. Now back to the judgment of the Supreme Court, the one delivered on the 15th. The Supreme Court addressed a lot of issues on that matter and laid certain matters to rest. For instance, a lot of what is in the public domain is that Nnamdi Kanu jumped bail. That was, even myself, I was compelled to believe, you understand, that he actually jumped bail. But the Supreme Court laid this matter, not just the Supreme Court, the Court of Appeal agreed. You get the point. The Court of Appeal agreed. They said no. He agreed with Nnamdi Kanu that he didn't jump bail. Rather, the state made it impossible, you understand, for Nnamdi Kanu to appear in court. That was what the Court of Appeal stated. The Court of Appeal went further to say that the trial judge was aware of all these facts put before it, but he turned a blind eye to these issues. I was amazed when I read this. I read it myself. I wasn't told. In fact, the Court of Appeal the Supreme Court indicted the trial judge and said that the impartiality of the trial judge is called to question. This is I am not making this up. I urge members of the public to take a look at the judgment of the Supreme Court of 15th December 2023 pertaining Nnamdi Kanu. In fact, read specifically the judgment of Justice Agim, I think somewhere around page 10 to 13. where they rebooked the trial judge in all this. So what is more? So the Supreme Court made a very succinct pronunciation on that matter. Now, however, the Supreme Court reinstated having found out all this, that Nnamdi Kanu did not jump bail and he was illegally extradited from Kenya to Nigeria. The Supreme Court, in its wisdom, reinstated the 7-count charge earlier struck out by the Court of Appeal. Do not forget that it was a total of 15-count charges. You understand? And the Court of Appeal, in its wisdom, struck out 8, remaining 7. So the Supreme Court, while agreeing with the Court of Appeal, you understand, that Nnamdi Kanu was illegally abducted. In fact, they used the word abducted and kidnapped. These were the words of the Supreme Court and not my words. So the Supreme Court agreed with all this, but in its wisdom, it went ahead to reinstate the 7-count charge earlier struck out by the court below, that is the Court of Appeal, and ordered a retrial of this case. Well, the Supreme Court is the apex court of the land. Nobody there is according to our big brother in the legal profession, Michael Zekume, senior advocate of Nigeria, he said that the Supreme Court is a big masquerade, So we leave it at that. But the Supreme Court ordered a retrial of the court of the matter. I would have expected, with all due respect, I'm not questioning the decision, you understand, because it's final, but in my own way as a legal practitioner, I would have expected that, having agreed that Nnamdi Kanu was illegally abducted from South Africa and kidnapped, and illegally extradited to Nigeria without following all the extradition processes both in Kenya and in Nigeria. Initially, before now, I was thinking that the Kenyan government was even part of this illegal abduction, but the Supreme Court laid that to rest to say that Kenyan government wasn't part of it. In fact, they were oblivious of what happened. Now, having agreed, with all the evidence presented by Nnamdi Kanu, who incidentally was the respondent in the matter, the Supreme Court, the list, with all due respect, that I expected the Court of Appeal to have done, the list was to order that Nnamdi Kanu be released on bail. You've agreed with all the indices. You understand? Breach of law, in fact, gross violation, brazen. These are some of the words, you understand, they use. Brazen, gross violation. You understand? You have agreed. Due processes was not followed. You also agreed that due processes is sine qua non, is very, very important to criminal charges. Not just criminal charges. In every trial, I would have expected that the Supreme Court should have said, okay, go home, so that you'll be coming from your home to the court. Since you asked for a retrial, go home so that you'll be sane. You'll be the young man will be in his right frame of mind. Because listen, you need to be in your right frame of mind to stand trial. The courts, there are so many judicial pronouncements on this fact. You need to be in the right frame of mind. So the Supreme Court would have asked him, go home, make sure you come from the home, your house, to the court at any time you are needed. The Supreme Court, before I conclude, also acknowledged the fact that as at the time Nnamdi Kanu's home in Abia State, you understand, was when the government, the state, through the military with its Operation Python dance, The name is very ridiculous. Python that I have never seen danced. The only thing they do is to spit fire. You know, spit fire like a dragon, the mythical dragon. Now, the Supreme Court said, as at the time they did that, Nnamdi Kanu was under the custody of the law and not in the custody of the state anymore. So, and that they created a situation which made it impossible, absolutely impossible, for Nnamdi Kanu to be present. In fact, they said that it was only reasonable. Gentlemen of the press, I am not making these words up. In fact, I'm trying to quote the Supreme Court in verbatim. It was only reasonable for him to have escaped for his life and for his mental, physical well-being. The Supreme Court uses the word physical well-being, but I wish to add that even the mental well-being is required for any man to stand this trial. And that is why in criminal trials, when it is discovered that an accused person or a defendant is not in the right in his mental state, they order that trial cannot go on. These are some of the privileges that such kind of persons enjoy. So honestly, with all due respect, why we honor, respect the judgment of the Supreme Court, and we cannot do otherwise. We respect it in its totality, you know, being the apex court of the land. But with all due respect, I still feel, in my view, in my most humble view, that the Supreme Court should have ordered Nnamdi Kanu to go home. You understand? I mean, on bail, to grant him bail, you know, and while the trial continues. I think that it will not be out of place